And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Cyber Spot. I have the great pleasure to introduce Tyler Cohen Wood as well as Tina Gravel. And, we were having so much fun prior to going live that we were late by a couple of minutes. So, welcome to the show. Thank you very much for joining all. Much appreciated.
We always have fun, David. I don't know why. I don't know why we say we're going to be there exactly at 12:30 because last time it was with Trish. We were having a lot of laughs, and we better get started. So.
Absolutely. So, pleasure having you, Tyler. You're very prolific. Maybe we start with some little bit of background, what you've done. You're one of the top women in cyber. We're very privileged to have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I'm privileged to be here with you guys. It's a great show. And I'm really excited to be here. So
tell us how you got started in cybersecurity. That's really tell us about when you tell your background about the name, it blows everyone's mind. So that's where you must start.
Totally.
Honestly, I don't think I've actually ever said this in a book or on a podcast anywhere, but the reason I went into cybersecurity was country music.
I left my dog when I was breached.
Got a good voice.
Yes, she does. No. And she looks great, so she's a perfect singer.
So at the time, when I was one of those I was a music intern. I wanted to be a rock star, even though I knew I didn't have talent. So I interned for a record label in college. And then right when I graduated, I moved to New Orleans and I was a DJ on a radio station. And I also worked for a nightclub, and I still worked for the record label, but I loved the radio station. But at the time, I was I was kind of snobby about my music, but in a ridiculous, childish way, where if other person had heard of one of my bands, they were sellouts. Like I was one of those. Thank goodness I've aged a lot. But yeah, at the time, I did not appreciate country music, and our radio station turned country. I had started getting really interested in computers, and so I decided to move to San Francisco because that was during the dot boom, and they would hire anyone with a brain and just teach them. So that's really how I got into it. Wow. I now love country music, by the way.
and tell us why your name provides a special key to your entry into the business.
Oh my God. Yeah, when I first started, I mean, this is 1999. So when you would interview, you would do it through email, and there was no Facebook. There was nothing like that. So there wasn't a big profile on everybody back then. But there, obviously, things have changed. But yeah, it was. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I can get you back there easy enough.
Thank you.
Tyler being Tyler.
Yes. Thank you.
A woman's name or a man's name. And
so I would email. I would email, and they would see Tyler Kevin Cohen, and they would automatically make the assumption that I was a guy, and I would show up and they'd be like, whoa, wasn't expecting that. And I mean, it's crazy, but I think that really did afford me a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have normally had. So thanks, Mom. Sorry I said I didn't like the name.
It's a great name
I love it now.
For a great gal. I am so proud to know you. Your work with the U.S. government is a thing that intrigues me a great deal. Why don't you share a little bit about that with us as well?
Sure. That was, I have to say, working for the government, I loved it. I really did. I started off working for the Department of Defense Cybercrime Center, doing the coursework and teaching federal agents how to do forensic examinations and how to recover evidence. But I also did forensic examinations there too. I did intrusion cases and major crimes cases. And yeah, intrusion cases are kind of cool, but I preferred working the major crimes cases because there was an identifiable victim that we were trying to help give them the justice that they deserved. So I those cases were a lot harder. I mean, I'm not saying some of the intrusion cases were not really fun, but the major crimes cases were a little bit more difficult. And I loved that job so much, but and people who are not familiar with the area, they may not understand, but I live in Fairfax. My job was right by BWI Airport, so I had a commute that was just killing me. 3 hours sometimes just to get home.
Wow.
And one of the agents that I had supported on a case, he was leaving his position at DIA, and he kept hounding me. You need to apply. You need to apply. You need to apply. And so finally I did. And that changed a lot, because I went from federal law enforcement to the intelligence community. And it's a little bit different. It was a bit of a learning curve, but I loved it. I loved the work that we did. I loved the way that we had to think. I really loved working for the science and technology directorate. I mean, it was great. It was really great.
And so what kind of work did you do there? Was it also investigations and cybersecurity related?
No, this is what's so interesting is I started off as a cyber branch chief for the Special Comms Enterprise Office, and then later was promoted to deputy chief. And what I did there was kind of the opposite of doing intrusion forensics. It was finding ways to make cyber types of capabilities, act and feel as if they were normal to, hypothetically, a nation state actor in a network where they have incredible access. So making those comms hide in the noise, and making sure that any devices looked and felt through a cursory forensic exam like they were supposed to. So it was a lot of really complex and weird thinking, and I'm very weird, so it just works great.
So let me, and David, you probably have a question, so interrupt me at any time. But let me get this straight. You were actually putting sniffers or things to see what was going on in a way that the bad guys couldn't pick up.
Sort of. So my cell phone. Pretend like hypothetically, of course, because I can't say things.
Yes, hypothetically.
Hypothetically,
yeah.
If you were on a mission in a country, we'll make up a country. I don't know, Iron or something like that.
Okay.
That had they own the network. It wasn't like here where you have multiple providers of network service. This is where the entire network is owned, and you had to look and feel as if you were, I don't know, some employee at IBM or somewhere like that.
Sure.
Your equipment would have to look and feel like it was as if you were working for IBM, and you have to find within networks certain ways of hiding things in the noise, utilizing these devices and that technology. So it's just a very different way of thinking, and it really is kind of the opposite of forensics.
Yeah, it is. It's completely the opposite. How fascinating! Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I had my hands in so much when I was there. I loved it. I was the S&T I was the S&T liaison to a lot of the other agencies. So, I mean, we did a lot of work throughout that community, and I wish I could tell you some of the cool things, some of the accomplishments and things like that, but I can't.
No. So getting to today, you've started a very interesting company.
Yes.
How did you, and it's healthcare related. So what is the company, and how'd you get to where you are today? So So David can start asking some questions.
And why did you do that? I mean, looking at your background, it's amazing. You
Yeah.
have, IBM, NASA, General Dynamics. I mean, you could have just, continue on with those logos, especially with all this background, and decide to venture to deep end.
Well, I leaving DIA was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, but it was because I'd written a book, Catching the Catfishers, and it was to help teach parents and kids how to protect themselves in the online domain, and a book that kids could read with their parents and very quickly identify with checklists how to vet if someone is actually who they say they are. So when I wrote that, I started doing a lot of public speaking and a lot of media, and you really can't be at the level that I was, or really at any level in the intelligence community, and do a lot of media. And I do everything. I stay within my lines, and but it was getting very difficult to do. So I made the decision to leave and move into the private sector after the book. So I do a lot of public speaking, and now to your question, how did My Connected Health get started? So in 2018, I got sick, and I got really sick. I was, one day I was eating a bad piece of food. I got sick, and the next day I was in the hospital, and all of a sudden I find myself on this crazy medical journey where, I made the assumption that, okay, well, I go to the doctor, they fix it. It's like I take my, someone brings me a computer. Well, not anymore, but, and, I could fix it. It's like that, but that's not how it works at all. And I started going through the system, and it was an incredibly difficult time. It was very hard because when you have something complicated, and I'm not saying this of us, there's so many amazing doctors that really, really wanted to help, but it's really the way the system is structured that things don't always work out that way. And, I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And we even went to the Cleveland Clinic. And I mean, after it was crazy. I would have doctors say, I've never seen this. I don't know what it is. You got to go to that one. And there was no communication between them. And I knew that what I had was bad. And I knew that I had to find out. And I started putting together these spreadsheets. I started doing Tyler AI logic in my head, which is just bizarre, but but that's kind of what I do, and really started piecing together what was going on. And it's very hard, especially if you have one of these diseases where they call them invisible diseases. This is where you don't really look sick, but you're really sick. And when I didn't know what it was, so I couldn't really tell people why I was so sick. And it was really hard. I felt like I had to hide it. And I felt terrible when I wouldn't be able to go into the office or it was just really, really hard. I never canceled an engagement once throughout this time. Yeah.
Amazing. Because I know how sick you got, and that's just incredible. So how did you finally diagnose it? I think I know the answer, but I need to lead this.
So I knew I needed this My Connected Health, and I actually found a picture. It's hilarious, of a drawing that I did in February of 2019 of the initial My Connected Health. But in 2019, not a single person wanted a global healthcare system with unique AI models to help diagnose and treat, and to help get us ahead of medicine instead of below the curve and reactive.
Right.
And But no one wanted that in 2019. So I started working on another project, and I just kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker, but I could not go to another doctor. I couldn't do it. It was just, it's really difficult on the patient. But a woman that I'd known from yoga, because during that time I started doing a lot of a lot of alternative types of care, like yoga, tai chi, cupping, CBD, all kinds of things to see what would help, and it kind of did, but it didn't entirely. To fast forward, February 2020, I had what they call a cardiac event, silent heart attack, whatever. Actually, during a presentation.
Oh
No
my
way.
God.
Wow.
It was technically after the presentation, but I was sweating. It was so gross. Like it was
like a flop sweat event or something, huh?
like a wet t-shirt contest sweating.
Oh no.
Oh my God.
I'm only laughing with you, my dear. I am certainly not laughing at this situation, because we've all had things like that where you're like hot from the inside out, and it's a terrible feeling. Oh my gosh.
It was bad. You got to have humor though. I mean, otherwise you just have to. But so to get quick, COVID happened, and I got scared. I got really, really scared. And I knew that I was going to do my connected health, and I was going to make this happen because I want to be able to give everyone in the world the best healthcare with this new model that is possible. And so started, working on it. But I knew that at least just conceptually, I had to prove that it would work, at least in my mind. I knew it would, but I had to kind of go through the motions. So what I did was I decided that I was going to work on my own case, and using the logic that that the system would use. And so I took a couple of CT scans that were of the GI area, but they also annotated some of the things that were behind the scenes, like a granuloma on a lung or stuff like that. Uh-huh. So I took all those, what I called behind the scenes, I put them with a known condition, and then with some alternative lab that an alternative doctor had done. I think it was like some inflammation panel. And I'm telling you, when I saw the diagnosis, when it popped up, it was a medical article, and I started reading, and I'm like, oh my God. It explained things that I didn't even know were issues, but I knew I had them. And it's just kind of that feeling like this is it. And I called my doctor right away, or texted actually, and she said, oh my God, you do have this. And we tested, and now we know what I have. And I diagnosed myself with something that only 300,000 people in this country are known to have.
I knew one other person 40 years ago that had this thing that you have, which I know you have, what you have. It is, it's incredibly rare. When you talk about it, so it sounds to me like you put the machine, the elements of the doctor, how the doctor would diagnose, into your model from the CT scan. So he or she should have seen those things and been able to put it together. But because your condition was so rare, it wasn't something they automatically knew. But
and the system is so broken because there is not a single doctor that actually has the time to sit and piece these things together. The whole model is there's a lot of change that needs to happen because at the moment it's not really set up for success.
Mm-hmm. So so your company, what do you propose that happens with your company and the business model and all of that?
So it's a collaborative global healthcare system where It's very patient centric. We're also using a secure crowd. There's a lot of disease groups on Facebook and other social media platforms, but in this instance, we would not own the data. We would not sell anyone's data. So at least nothing like that. So it would take place of those groups, but doctors and patients learn a lot from each other. And so that piece is important too. The machine does not actually the AI is not actually doing the diagnosis. It's just helping the doctors and doing the dirty work so that they don't have time to do. And it's piecing together reports, suggesting where they go next. But the beauty of it is, not everyone has a case as complex as mine where you need, 10 doctors, but if you do have something difficult to diagnose, the AI will start putting you with doctors based on your condition, and you may have a doctor in Sweden, you may have a GI in Fairfax, Virginia, you may have a cardiologist in Germany, and so on and so on, and all of these different specialists and different doctors are working together on the same case, and the machine is actually going to be learning too. And it's going to be able to remember every suggestion, everything that worked, everything that didn't. Mm-hmm. And eventually it's going to not only be predictive, but it's going to be able to be used to strategically target medications to find cures, not just treatments.
Wow. Fascinating. That's awesome, Tyler. Just awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be in time to help me, but it's not about that for me. It's about the millions of people out there that are sick, are suffering, or they have kids that are sick or suffering, and they don't have answers. And for the doctors that are so hard, it's so hard for them when they can't help their patients. And this is going to help millions of people. So it's one of those things that it's much bigger than just me.
Right.
Yeah. So,
well, it's a fascinating thing. And of course, this is a cyber show. So talk about how you're securing everything, because you come from cybersecurity background. I know it's the most secure system out there.
Yes. Well, and there's even more weird cybersecurity stuff because
you don't tell us all this.
I won't tell you to
get out the how it's going to be made safe, basically, and without giving it away.
I love you, Tina.
You too.
I love you. Yeah. So we're going to be using. We're going to have to adhere. Now, we're not going to bring every country online at the same time. It's going to start smaller than that. But adherence to the strictest compliance of wherever it is that we're going to be going, we're going to have to adhere to that. And, we're going to have it. So we have compliance officers that we're going to be working with, but we're also going to secure it by using another component of it that is kind of a special comm solution, but it's used for transferring data, and it's pretty secure.
Okay, good. So you've built in security into the app as you have designed it.
We will build in. We are still at the design.
Okay.
Trying to get to the MVP stage. It will.
David, how many times have we talked about digital transformation and how that's the one thing that people forget? They want to get the solution to the market quickly to change the company, but they don't realize the risk that they're putting their customers, their clients, their partners, and their employees under by not considering the cybersecurity aspects of it. It's just terrible.
It needs to be by design for sure. There's no two ways about it.
Yes,
definitely. And when I build these capabilities, I'm in my head, like you should see my whiteboards. They look like a psychopath, Jerome, but they make sense. But when I build these systems, I am so trained in my mind that if the evidence or not evidence, if the communication or if the information is compromised in any way, I'm still in the mindset that means that person is dead. And I know that may seem a little bit paranoid, but that's just how I've been trained. So when I do these, I think of all the caveats that I possibly can, and then I ask other people all the caveats they can think of.
I think that what you're doing is phenomenal. In fact, if everyone had someone that had this cyber background at the helm, at the top of the company to advise when strategic decisions were being made, we'd have a lot less problems than we do today. So I think it's absolutely key. And it's so funny because I think when David and I were talking about having you on, I never thought about this aspect of how you're engineering in security. But when you do, what a drastically different outcome you can have.
Yes.
And so I would urge anybody seeing this. The other thing that I would say is that, and, we're getting to the top of the hour. What do you need to make this a reality? How can we help you get the word out? How can you be found? And what are you looking for as a next step to get this business to the next level?
So we are pre-funding. So we are looking for funding. You can reach me, Tyler at myconnectedhealth.net. You can find me on LinkedIn, Tyler Cohen Wood. You can also find me on Twitter at Tyler Cohen Wood. I'm not as good about Facebook, so or you can also go to the myconnectedhealth.net website, and there's something in there that you can say if you're interested, reach out. So those are kind of some good ways, but yes, that is what we are looking for. Is we are in the funding stage.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
On Facebook, you can always see her dog. And we won't say his name because of course, she would never be stupid enough to use his name in a password.
No.
Hey, David, did I monopolize this broadcast?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've enjoyed the time.
But you know what? But I love Tyler, and it's like my little baby. I had to make sure it got taken care of. My little baby.
100%. We should do this in person sometime soon. Things are opening up.
Yes. I mean, you guys are in New York, right?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm not quite there yet, but I can get there pretty easily. So.
Okay. And I'm right outside of DC in Northern Virginia, so we're close.
I'm planning an event, in-person event for September. So maybe we can all reconvene in New York City. We'll do a session, and then hopefully,
awesome.
By then
we'll get AppGate involved in doing some sponsoring too. I'm working.
Yeah.
Secure access company for Zero Trust.
Hey, plug in. Chop, chop, chop. Okay. Okay, good. So this was amazing. Thank you very much, Tyler. It's been really a pleasure to have you on the show today. It really fascinates me how people, jump to the deep end. And typically your story resonates with me because this is what happens. They see a need, a gap somewhere, and it's typically a personal need like you had and you have right now. And you look out there and you don't just sit there and do nothing, but you go out there and create. And it's not easy. Trust me. The journey is very, very difficult. So, and thanks, Tina, for being such a great co-host. Much appreciated.
Well, she's an amazing woman. Made it easy. Made it really easy. And you always, David, you're just a wonderful.
Thank you. So see you all in the next event. Looking forward to having you all. And 4 weeks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care all.
Bye.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
so much.